welcome back to another episode of 5 Minutes with Jesus and Jesse. Today we're going to be talking about a story that takes place in Mark chapter 9. So this is a story of a father who brings his demon-possessed son to be healed by Jesus. When the father shows up with his son, Jesus is not on the scene yet. The disciples are actually there. And so the father asks the disciples if they can heal him. And the disciples cannot do it. Jesus comes on scene and he rebukes his disciples and says, "You faithless people, how long must I be with you?" Jesus then proceeds to inquire about the boy who is sick. And the father pleads, "Have mercy on us and help us if you can." Jesus responds with, "What do you mean if I can? Anything is possible if a person believes." The father then cries out, "I do believe. Help me with my unbelief." So the father obviously had some amount of belief to bring his sick child to Jesus and request that he heals him. Maybe it was a last resort. Maybe this was the last thing he was trying to save his demon-possessed son. But he says, "I brought my child to you so you can heal him." And then a few verses later he adds, "if you can." What if the if you can, what if the if isn't really in regard to Jesus's ability to heal? Because the father believed enough to bring his son there. But what if the if is actually in regard to the man's faith, the father's unbelief? Jesus did not respond with, "Do you know who I am? Obviously you've heard about me. If you're bringing your son here to be healed, what do you mean if I can? Like, you know I can. You know I'm capable of this." Jesus doesn't respond that way. He doesn't need to prove that he's capable of doing this healing. Jesus' question was in regard to the man's doubt. "What do you mean if I can?" Jesus knew that this man had some unbelief in his heart. He believed Jesus enough to bring his son to be healed, but he recognizes he has his own doubts. If you can, he expresses his faith, but he also recognizes there's some part of me that might believe this is too good to be true. And so he pleads, "Help me with my unbelief. I want to have faith. I want to have enough belief to know for certain that you can do what you say you're going to do." He has enough faith to bring his son to Jesus, but this man does not have enough faith to save his son. He says, "If my faith is not enough, please help me have enough where you will save my son. You will rid him of this demon that has possessed him." And I don't know about any of you, but this was really me this past week. There are numerous people in my life, in the community, including my mother, who just got cancer diagnosis. And I have been praying for these people. I mean, every single one of them, specifically, every single day, praying for these people. And one night this past week, I was asleep and I felt God wake me up, jolt me awake. And he said, "You need to pray." And I start praying and I doze back off and he wakes me up again. He's like, "You need to keep praying." And so I continued praying. And the next morning I was having my quiet time with him and I heard him tell me, "You keep praying like you're not expecting me to actually do something, and I need you to pray expectantly." And I was like, okay. So I talked to my friend Joni about this and I've had a lot of time to reflect. And I'm like, so if I'm praying and I'm saying these prayers and I'm not praying expectantly, then there's some unbelief in my heart, just like there's some unbelief in this father's heart who brought his son to be healed by Jesus. I need to start praying and acting and believing that God truly has the ability to heal, and he will. If that's my conviction, then where does my unbelief lie? Jesus says anything is possible for those who believe. Luke 1:37 says, "For the word of God will never fail." And his word also says in Mark 11:23 and 24, "Have faith in God," Jesus answered. "Truly I tell you, if anyone says to this mountain, 'Go, throw yourself into the sea,' and does not doubt in their heart, but believes what they say will happen, it will be done for them. Therefore I tell you, whatever you ask in prayer, believe that you receive it, and it will be yours." The miracles that Jesus performed a lot of times in his life here on earth were a result of somebody else's faith. There are so many stories where sometimes the person who was sick and needed the healing wasn't even present. It was because of somebody else's faith that they were healed. So we must be encouraged to have this kind of faith, trusting that God will hear our prayers. I was convicted of this, and I don't know if this is any conviction for you, but we have to start praying in faith, expectantly, knowing God is going to hear you and he's going to show up.